Let's go, Kwame. We haven't heard you first for a little bit. Can you give us your first thoughts, and then we're gonna go Matt, and then end with Mike, please.
Yeah, great. First impression, I think it's quite a colorful portfolio. I feel a bit of Japanese influence here. Uh, yeah, I think that's first impressions. Small world kind of um, creations here, but yeah, looking good. I think looking at her, her profile here, a gaming enthusiast, um, 3D art in a diploma course. Goal is to become a game environment artist. Okay, and her previous work was in IT. So Mike, similar industry, transition in a way. Um, yeah, so let's talk about the work. I think we're just dived into where I think Matthias, you're scrolling there. I like how she has the breakdowns. How she's applying the texture using the various software. I like the various tests she's doing with the simulation and the animation of liquids and plants. Very colorful. Um, these are just initial thoughts of how it is. I like her presentation on the breakdown. I think that
I
stands out for her. Out
I
of
know Matt's gonna have a problem with the level of detail in those tiles, aren't you, Matt? I literally saw you twitch.
yeah, but other than that, I think the breakdown is there. I'll just now perhaps package it in a way where there's a bit of more text to explain what's happening. Um, and yeah, I think that those are my first impressions. I think I'll talk about more as we go around.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kwame. Mike, you're next.
Oh, okay. Yeah, first of all, I love the colors. I think it's, I don't know, makes me happy. I think from a portfolio standpoint, it's kind of a classic portfolio in the sense of you have one project per tile, if you will. Then there's a breakdown, the maps are shown, workflow is shown. So it's kind of as you would expect, right? What I do see is that this is an artist that is at a very high skill level when it comes to 2D. So if you look at the bottom right pictogram, you can see that she has a lot of experience in 2D work, right? So Matt, kind of that one right there, the bottom one, and then to the right, if you can click on that. So this is super high level, right? This is super skilled. Now, what I read in the narrative is if you look at the second tile on the overview page, that is basically her first steps into 3D. And there you see a very distinct difference in skill set. Now, that's not necessarily a problem because she explains that that's the case. And that's what we talked about earlier when we started the reviews, that it's not necessarily a weakness, but it's an area where she wants to grow and progress, and she mentions that in the portfolio. The portfolio is very diverse. There's a lot of breakdown as far as workflow and whatnot, and I think it's a very solid portfolio.
Agreed. Yes.
Brilliant. Matt, do you want to talk about detail? Because I know you do.
Yeah, I just was marveling at this one because it's kind of low resolution, but this here, right? Just talking about the technicalities at the moment, but it has an aesthetic in itself. So this is where kind of Minecraft comes from, right? So I love that this is not just, it is there, it is shown, and that's a very honest statement also. So I believe this is really cool. Another thing which I see is, if we go back to the overview, so kind of what I feel is a multiple, let's say, kind of almost like exercises to mimic certain specific styles that we know from games, particularly, let's say, for example, these forms here, or this sword. Then what we also see here is kind of these banners, the forms, the simplistic kind of geometries, and these kind of almost futuristic sci-fi runes, which remind me of, for example, Zelda. And then there's also, for example, this door that just is so cute, which obviously we all know where this is coming from The Hobbit, right? So, so what I like is that there's definitely, so Jana proves the fact that she sees these, let's say, elements, and she is capable of transforming them into something new that combines some of those elements, but they are borrowed, but they are nicely borrowed, right? I mean, if you're looking at the design of this bottle here, it's so very clear where exactly, it's so very clear where this is coming from. So it's a mixture between World of Warcraft, but also Aladdin, and and kind of this, but it's a cool mixture, and it is a experiment, right? Now the thing that Davina, you mentioned before, where I was twitching, actually I was intrigued by something. Let me go back to it. Where was it? It must have been here. So here we see the material studies, right? So that's cool. But what I really liked here is this thing here called the trim sheet. Is actually a material atlas that has that's what the trim sheet typically is, and this is for optimization for game engines, so that you have to only have one material, but you can reuse the same or multiple parts of that one material. So you can make everything super efficient, so you don't have to kind of use multiple materials. So this is something that at a stage where she is, and so this is final project of the second year of the diploma, is something that I find really cool, that this is even kind of attempted, because this is already this is going forward in even thinking about optimization. So that's like a showcase, or showing the awareness of optimization, and actually already also the capabilities of being able to implement even something like this, which is complex to manage. So I love that detail. Then also kind of these things here, it's a beautiful craftsmanship of colors, with their own aesthetics. So yeah, a lot of beautiful things coming together. And yeah, I would agree that it's more, let's say, a kind of, for ArtStation, it's more a classic portfolio, but very well done, like well presented with all of the tools. So it's also complete. So it's really nice. Yeah.
And you get a sense of her as well, right? Her likes, maybe what she does in her free time. Okay. Which is what
And
you
I
guys
think
have been.
maybe she likes camping as well, so few camping experiments there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And that is
Matt,
what you guys have been
Matt clicked
playing
on
off.
that especially for you, Davina.
Dude, I would buy that. Matt, that's my fee for being here. Matt's gonna buy me that. And Jana is actually gonna make it in real life.
Yeah.
Davina bag. No, but you have every each four portfolios you've been saying where we want to know you, we want to get a sense of you, and I think that this probably out of all of the four, correct me if I'm wrong, we get a sense of her. It's an accurate portrayal, I'm assuming, the picture of her. We get the name, we have a little bit, and we definitely get a sense of the person behind this and what she does and who she might be away from her computer, which is what I've heard is important from you guys.
Well, at the end of the day, what you want to know is this a person that I can work with?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and one cool thing about this portfolio is, and that's something you see a lot, when people have an interview, they want you to have your own style, but they also want you to have the ability to follow along with a predefined style. Let's say you're working for a client and the client wants a certain style, then you are able to let go of your own style and follow within that guide, right? And for some people, that's very hard to do because, hey, this is how I do it, and this is my style, and this is how I want to do it. That doesn't always fly. And a good example of that is people that have worked for Disney, right? The rest of their career, you can see that they work for Disney.
Yeah,
Right?
but it's a very important point, and that's the difference between being an artist working for, let's say, a company versus being a fine artist working for yourself. That's a massive difference, and so a lot of people are not aware of that. And even after graduating with arts degrees and so on, this still was probably never really told to a lot of people, because the design and collaboration, it's you're working together on a vision, but you have to be a certain amount of selfless, of still trying to push in your thoughts, but it's not your body of work, it's not your project, it's, let's say, like a client's project. So it's your task to help to push the project further, and it's not your artwork, right? Otherwise, you are a fine artist, and then you are your own boss. Completely, totally two separate worlds. And if this is something bothering you, or if I mean it, both are perfectly fine, right? Absolutely nothing against fine artists, but I think this is something that a lot of people should consciously think about. That's kind of criticism. Can I deal with criticism? Can I work in a team? Do I care about these things? Or what is it that bothers me when my work is criticized? And if you, for example, but then if you dig a little bit deeper, there's Mike's why game again, right? Why does it bother you? Then eventually you might discover that, well, I just want to be a fine artist and just produce my art, and that's it, right? But these are two very, very important distinctions. Or it's one distinction.
It's a very real thing, though, Matt. And I mean, for example, people that are in the movie business and that are actors, like Davina, right? I assume you have done auditions, and auditions can
I've been rejected a lot.
I mean, auditions can be brutal, right? And basically, if you're in a team working on a game or working on a feature film, for that matter, right? You put your heart and soul into something, and you're so happy with it, and then an art director comes along and tears it into pieces and says, "I hate it," right? And you need to be okay with that, because that's not personal, and you are part of a bigger machine in that sense, right? And once in a while you get creative freedom to do whatever you want, right? Or to a certain extent, but most of the time you're following guidelines. And even back in the day, Rembrandt, right, he was doing paintings to kind of pay the bills, right? so he could, in his free time, create things he wanted to create. And that's just the name of the game.
This is why I know your YouTube channel is so prolific and so popular. I want you to adopt me, Mike. Can I just call you every Sunday night when I'm really depressed about my life choices? All right, so it's taken us this long. I was timing when how quickly Matthias would get into philosophy and poetry, but he's there now, which means we might need another break. Matt, what do you're twitching again? What do you need to ask and say?
Before
more.
Matt jumps in, one thing I
Truong
noticed
is
is
twitching. Go.
Yana's LinkedIn is linked to a different Yana, so that was interesting. I was like, is this the same person or not? So there's something to highlight that people need to be careful about. The links, the links that you post and tag on your various platforms. Yeah.
Yana's played us all.
Yeah. That's
okay.
That is an important detail. But now one of the just a last point here is I think this is a really tricky stage where to be at the moment, because I mean certain things very strong, but a very wide scope also of different things. So I see modeling, sculpting, texturing. I saw some animated things. I saw, let's say, concept arty or concept artsy things. There's a ton of things that go on in parallel, but for like 2D, 3D animation, modeling, texturing, then with a background in IT. Now what I see where a challenge can or could be is, okay, where next, right? Because there's a lot of things, some of them a little bit more refined, some of them not so refined yet. But then the question is, where is the journey heading towards? And let's say Jana knows in which direction to go. Then this would mean basically kind of sorting out the things that maybe are not really applicable to the next application that she sends in the industry, right? So because what I see here is a young generalist that knows a little bit of everything, but not every studio has the need for a generalist that can basically, quote unquote, do it all. So one of the things here is probably I would maybe reduce the number of topics if that's possible. I don't know. And then say, okay, so assuming that Jana sent in her portfolio, it kind of is going in this direction of, okay, I want to polish things now. But the question is, in which direction should the direction go? And so kind of going into what Davina just mentioned, philosophies. What does your heart tell you? What you love to do, and what you would love to do for the next couple of years? In which direction is it? Isolate it. Play the why game, right? Like, do you want to do modeling? Do you want to do texturing? Or do you specifically want to do something where you can play a little bit of all of the, let's say, all of the aspects, right?
Matt, yes. and I laugh about it, but I actually love it. I love, I'm poetic and a romantic, unfortunately, but it's such a privilege to know what you want and where you want to go. Is there a way, because you guys are the experts, can you see where she should go, where she might or she should go? Is there a way of seeing that, or is it really up to her? Could she go either way? Or what
she could go or should go?
Let's do should. Let's help her out.
I would never tell somebody where they should go.
She's not even here. She's not even here. Don't worry about it.
I mean, there's an obvious direction where she could go, right? But keep in mind that if you make that step, you're probably going to spend decades doing it. And then it's pretty important that she's the one that wants to do it, right? And we've all been in a situation where we spend 1 or multiple years doing something in anticipation of something else, right? Because that's how the world works. And you try to gather the things, experience here, experience there. Hopefully, someday you're doing exactly what you want to do. But the last thing I would do is, based on a portfolio, tell somebody what they should do.
But is there a natural progression that you can see that, oh, okay, well, this is probably the next thing that it would be nice to see?
Sure. I mean, it's like Matt said, it's a solid portfolio. It's in a, let's call it a junior stage, right? But nevertheless, it's good. And it's almost all of the work I see here is inspired by, right? I don't see a lot of truly original things, but that's fine. That's where we all begin, right? She could land a job as a generalist and spend a number of years doing so, and in that time frame develop a specialty or a niche where she wants to be, and then slowly progress her portfolio in that direction. And then that's what usually happens. Somebody is 2-3 years in their initial junior job. Either they progress in that company or they move out to another company. And then usually at about the 8 to 10 years in the industry, they get into a situation like, this is my niche. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my career. Do you agree with that, guys?
Yeah. And also to your point, I think just looking at the thumbnails, you can definitely see there's a direction already happening from the 2D illustrations that she used to do, and she's getting into 3D. There's already a transition happening, and I think, as you said, Mike, it's towards, and she's experimenting with everything at the same time. There's a lot of learning happening. So the generalist route is probably what I also see, from her
But
work.
you can see her personality in her portfolio, and it's very, it's happy, it's bright, it's it's very colorful, playful, and maybe not necessarily as a result of her style, but she's picking this style because it suits her. So probably that is a style that she will adopt at some point.
Brilliant.